So following on from our 5-figure summaries, we're looking at box plots. And box plots are just a way of taking that 5-figure summary and representing it as a graph. And it's some kind of picture, because when we're looking at our statistics, wherever possible, we would prefer not to look at just a list of numbers. We'd rather look at it in terms of the diagram that it gives us. So box plots are just graphs which show the quartiles of our data. Okay, so we're just representing this in pictorial form. So remember that when we're doing it, we need to have our 5-figure summary. So that is going to be one of the things we need to remember and make sure that we can do. And if we're still not happy that we can do that, then we need to make sure that we've gone back and had a look at the 5-figure summary stuff that we did earlier. So taking an example then, we want to find the box plot associated with the following data. And so we've got our list of numbers there. So our first step is we need to create a 5-figure summary for the data. And because I've pinched these numbers from the 5-figure summary slides, I've just taken the 5-figure summary straight from that as well. So again, if you want to remember how we did that, go back and have a look. So we've taken our numbers, we've got our 5-figure summary. The next thing we need to do is we need to draw out our scale. We need to draw the axes out along the bottom. And so looking at our data, we should be looking to see where our numbers go between. So our data goes between 3 and 18. So extending my scale just a little bit, I'm going to go between 2 and 20 here, finishing on a 20. 20 is a nice enough number to finish on. There is nothing that says what you have to have your numbers between. It should be a sensible scale though. Okay, so it'll be up to you to decide how to draw it, but it doesn't have to start at 0, it doesn't have to start at 1, it doesn't have to go up to a particular value, it doesn't have to go up in particular values. We're fortunate here that our numbers are close enough together, we can just go in 1s. It wouldn't be practical to go up in 5s or 10s. Okay, we wouldn't be able to see a big enough difference between where we were trying to put our things. So up in 1s makes enough sense here. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to draw on our quartiles. So from the 5-figure summary, I've got a quartile at 6.5, another one at 10.5, and a final one at 15.5. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to mark them on just above my axis. And once I've got my 3 quartiles marked in, I'm going to make them into a box. And so I'm just going to join them up like that, creating a wee box. So I've got 3 of my 5 things on my graph. So the next thing we need to do is we need to add in our minimum and maximum values. So my lowest value 3, highest value 18, so they just get lines in them as well. And all we're going to do is they just get attached on to our box plot, just like that. Okay, so we call them box plots, sometimes referred to as box and whisker diagrams, depending on where it is that you're looking at. And what we want to do is we're really interested in the box part in the middle. Okay, so that bit tells us about the spread of our data. And so the closer together that box is, the smaller that wee box becomes, the more consistent our data has been. Okay, so looking at okay, again, just some numbers that we pinched from the other slides. So we want to create a box plot looking at this data. So again, first step is still to find our 5-figure summary. So I've created my 5-figure summary with my highest, my lowest, and my quartiles. Next thing we do is we're going to come up with our scale. So our numbers this time go from 3 up to 38. So it's not really practical to go up in 1s anymore, we've run it to paper. So we've gone up in 2s just to try and make sure that we can fit it on the page a little bit better. So we've drawn out our scale. Next step is to draw in my quartiles. So I've got quartile at 7, at 12.5, and at 16. So those 3 numbers, they just get a line. So I've drawn a wee line. After that, I make them into a box. Okay, so it's a handy wee way of remembering anything that we have worked out gets to go in that little box. And here our highest and lowest numbers are just the extra bits. So I've got my 3 quartiles that involve me doing some thinking, they get to go in my box. Next step is I'm going to attach on my maximum and my minimum values. So I've got lowest value 3, and the highest value up at 38. So once they're marked on, they get attached to the box as well. And what we can do is when we're looking at them, we can see from here quite clearly that actually a lot of our data is falling within that one section. Okay, to have our lower quartile, our median, and our upper quartile all reasonably close. Okay, we've got all our numbers stuck in there together, and then way up at the end, we've got our maximum number. Okay, and so all that's doing is telling me that there is a disproportionately large number helping to kind of skew our data a little bit there. And that's helpful, especially if we're looking at one of the averages. Okay, so if we start looking at the median, that might be a slightly better representation than if we look at the mean. Okay, because remember the 38 is going to be pulling that number up the way.